Welcome back to the Red Dice Diary, and in this RPG Bugbears video I'm going to be talking about buying equipment. Now, I was ranting about this the other night during character gen for the Numenera game that I'm going to be running shortly, so I thought it about time I did a Bugbears video on it. Now, what's the best way to share my feelings about spending ages buying equipment? Okay, in all seriousness, I do have a few problems with the equipment purchasing part, particularly at character gen. Now, the main problem I've got with it is that it's very anticlimactic and not particularly interesting to have people sat there trawling through endless lists of equipment, agonising over how they're going to spend every gold piece, credit, shin, firebird, or whatever currency is your choice of money in your game. Now, I spend an awful lot of time in real life shuffling figures and money around, and fiscal planning, I assure you, is not one of the reasons that I want to set the real world aside for a few hours and enter a fantasy one. Numbers and stats don't really draw me in to a role-playing game. They don't really set my world alight. It's the prospect of telling a group story and creating a shared narrative in the combined imaginations of the group that really gets me interested. Not how many gold pieces I'm going to spend on buying 800 meters of rope or whatever. Also, equipment buying normally comes at the end of character gen. So normally I've spent all this time during the evening crafting a character I'm really enthused about and really excited about playing. I'm all pumped up, I'm ready to go. And then I just have to stop, put the brakes on, and trawl through a normally huge list of equipment, working out where I'm going to spend every last gold piece or firebird or shin or whatever, and laboriously purchasing normally fairly everyday items. Now, don't get me wrong, there are occasions when visiting a market or a place of trade can be rich potential fodder for role-playing. But then the focus isn't normally on just buying stuff. It's bartering, it's haggling with the NPCs, or some events that are going on in the background that just use the marketplace as a backdrop. None of this sort of thing normally happens when you're buying equipment at character gen. And I think most of us, if we admit it to ourselves, have been in games where the character genning process has pretty much ground to a halt while people comb through huge tomes of equipment. There's been entire books written on it asking whether they can take some irrigati fire powder or whatever. How many times, if you're honest with yourself, have you found yourself telling a story about the great past deeds of your role-playing character? If you're like me, probably a number of times. And while some of them may have a market or a place of trade as a backdrop, how many of your roleplay related stories went like this? Hey, do you remember that time when I bought a bag of turnips for only 5 copper pieces and sorted out all my provision needs just like that? Oh man, that was sweet. I'll tell you how many. None of them. That's how many. It's not to say that equipment can't be interesting and potential fodder for roleplay. Of course, it can be. It can be very interesting. But most often, such interesting equipment can't be purchased by mere coins, and it's the striving to obtain it that makes a large part of the fun and interest of the roleplay. Not simply looking on a list and going, yes, I'd like 3 +1 swords of wounding, thank you, and sliding a big stack of gold coins to the trader. So, you might be saying, what can be done about this? Well, there are a couple of things that can make purchasing equipment less arduous, in my opinion. Number one, a lot of games group various equipment together in kits named after the various professions that use them. Thieves' kits, climbers' kits, etc. And this is a great way of simplifying the purchasing of equipment and enables you to jump into the actual fun bit of the game far more quickly. Number two, now in most films and books there isn't really such a focus on buying equipment. You'll very rarely see someone like Conan or Krull or any of the other famous figures of legend or popular fiction walking into a marketplace and the camera zooming in as they spend their hard-won coinage. It's generally assumed that the characters have whatever equipment is appropriate and necessary for their everyday tasks. We don't ask how Conan came by his sword. He's Conan the Barbarian. Of course he's got a sword. Now, this is the approach that I prefer to adopt. If a character is playing a thief, then yes, of course they can have some lockpicks. If they're a security guard, then yes, of course they can have an ID badge, plus whatever weapons / restraints are appropriate given the setting. Doing this allows people to not worry overly much during character creation about precisely what equipment they have. They don't have to agonise over every gold piece, every silver piece, whatever that they're spending. However, it does necessitate a bit of common sense and trust on behalf of the GMs and the players. You do trust your players, right? It also means that you only need to focus on jotting down stuff acquired in-game or that is unusual, and that you can actually get into the creating tales of adventure and imagination, which I hope you all agree with me is far more fun and exciting any day of the week than sitting down and making what effectively amounts to a fictional shopping list. So that's my thoughts on buying equipment during character gen. I hope if you've enjoyed this video, you'll click on like and subscribe. You can click on the red dice up in the corner to subscribe to my channel. If you have any comments or thoughts about this subject, please, as always, leave them in the comments box below or hit me up in the Google Plus links. Thank you very much for listening, and until I see you in my next video, take care and keep your eyes on those gold pieces.